Good morning and welcome to the Raben Report. I'm your host, Elliot Raben, so get ready to get triggered. Hello and welcome to the Raben Report. I'm your host, Elliot Raben, and with me is my expert panel, as always, Amara and Samuel. How are you guys?
Great.
Awesome. We are finally live. But on top of that, we've also got special guest Elvira Caria. She's an award-winning radio broadcaster and host of Caria's Corner, joining the panel. Elvira, thank you for being here.
Oh my God, it's a pleasure to be here, and this kind of looks familiar to me, and I can't wait for the discussion to kind of evolve and go into things.
Well, we are so excited for that. Why don't you tell our audience a little about yourself?
Okay, well, I am a former journalist, started off in print and went into radio broadcasting in the early 90s. Were any of you born then? No, probably not. That's the conversation we're going to have. Journalism, spent probably 23 of my 32 years in the newsroom, and then went into as a radio personality, if you will. Worked all across Ontario.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I've had the pleasure of working with you on Caria's Corner, and I've learned personally a lot from you. So, again, personally, I'm very excited that you're here.
And
so,
likewise, I'm learning from you too, and that's important to note as well. Yeah.
And that's very important for today's discussion.
It is.
Right?
It is.
So, to begin, all opinions expressed are not those of Ryerson or Ryerson faculty and are only those of the individual commentators. Viewer discretion is advised. Before we get to the news, the Raben Report would like to announce that we are officially looking for sponsors. Do you want to reach hundreds of students every week? Do you want to grow your business while supporting original content? Then contact us to find out about sponsorship opportunities available right now. Send us a message on Facebook, Instagram, or email us at info.therabenreport@gmail.com. Coming up a little later in the show, we'll be talking about our main topic, Millennials versus Baby Boomers. But first, let's take a look at our top stories in our weekly recap, starting with International Women's Day. Now, Elvira, you and I had the pleasure of covering an event.
Yeah.
What's your position on this holiday, which started in Russia, and now it's really become an international phenomenon? International holiday.
What do you mean? What is my position? It's a great, it's a great celebration of the accomplishments of women around the world, if you will. But obviously, it's also a good time to pause and say, where were we? Where are we today? And where can we go, tomorrow? Mm-hmm. Because there's still a lot to do. And as much as we've accomplished so much, I think there's still a really, really hard discussion about equality and, from an economics perspective, a salary perspective, and also just from a respect perspective.
Right. Mm-hmm. What do you guys think about it?
I agree. I think, I don't really have anything else to add. I think that it's, I don't see any problem with it. And I think it's nice to have a day where we, consider the accomplishments of women.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Obviously, women are important in our society. I love women, so I think it's generally a great holiday. Let's move forward now to the Democratic primaries. Turning to our friends down south, we posted a poll last week after the breaking news that Elizabeth Warren dropped out right before the show, and we asked our audiences who they think will be the nominee for the Democratic Party, whether it would be Joe Biden or Bernie Sanders. Now, we had an amazing 105 respondents vote for that. And Amara, you're going to be happy with the results because 57 people believe it's Bernie Sanders and 48 believed Joe Biden, with a total 54% for Bernie and 46% with Joe. But looking at what just happened this past Tuesday, I don't know if
Americans don't feel the same way as Canadians too, I guess.
What's your take on that? I mean, obviously more people agreed with you and believe that Bernie Sanders is going to be the nominee, but what does that say about Tuesday's results?
Well, I think it's obviously, there's a lot of differences between the people who voted in the poll and the people who voted in the primary in the States. Will probably skew younger, the people who would respond to your poll, and we're also Canadian. So I think that's a big difference. But from what I've read, young people didn't turn out to vote, and young people are Bernie's base, and I think that that's why that happened. I'm excited to see the debate on Sunday, and I really hope that Bernie proves why he should be the nominee over Biden.
Now, speaking of debate, there's been a lot of debate about Tulsi Gabbard not being invited to the debate. What do you guys think about that? She's the only female still in the race. She hasn't dropped out, so she's calling on Biden and Sanders to include her. What do you think?
How many delegates does she have so far?
I don't think she has any.
Right. So why would she? So what?
Exactly.
So I don't understand what's the issue.
Just to have another voice. Her point of view is that that she should be included. She's the only female that's still in the race. She has some good points.
What does female have to do with it?
That's
nothing.
Is that her crutch? Is that what she's?
Yes.
Well, then who cares? Is she a leader? Does she have delegates?
I don't think she had any. I think she
Well,
won
then
one.
it's
She
irrelevant
won
whether
American Samoa, I believe.
Is it even
That was
possible
Bloomberg.
for her to win the nomination at this point? Like, I would understand maybe if it were earlier, but I feel like she would just be taking time away from people who we actually need to hear their policies.
She would
because
have to win like every other delegate
Yeah, and
past
that's
this
not
point.
it's not going to happen. So I feel like
Yeah.
she would just be taking time away from us hearing policies of people who have a chance.
But is her argument that she feels that she hasn't been given a proper opportunity because she does have backing, or is her crutch going to be, well, I'm the only female, so why wouldn't I be? What
I think
does that
probably
mean?
a little bit of both.
I
I feel like
agree,
she's
yeah.
going to rest on being the only woman
Stop.
left because
Stop. We need to
know.
stop. This is part of an issue. I mean, we can talk a whole day on this. Stop using the gender as excuse.
yeah, I think it's a crutch. I don't think anybody. The issue with her is that it's a woman. It's that people don't like her platform.
They're not supporting her. Period. She needs to accept that. That's it. There's better candidates.
Her whole shtick is like because she was a soldier in her past life. That
Her past life.
well,
Yeah.
before being a senator for Hawaii. So her whole perspective is involving international relations, and even to be honest, I don't see that discussion really happening much, even within the Biden and Bernie. I was about to say Bloomberg. So I guess maybe if she was really hoping they get in, she could kind of mention that there's no discussion of international relations, especially when there's you could say a global crisis right now.
Well, according to our comments coming in, Zahavi says she has 2 delegates and she should drop out. She's an attention seeker.
That's what it seems like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because you look back at 2016 and Hillary used the fact that she's a woman as part of her.
But she was.
But she almost won.
She was a nominee,
So,
yeah. But
I
that
think-
was part of why people should voted for her. So I don't know if that should be the same
I just
argument
think
for
it's
Tulsi.
different because Hillary Clinton, she almost won the presidency.
Yeah.
She almost had a chance to be the first female president. That's a big deal. Tulsi Gabbard does not have a chance to be the first female president. She's just
Right.
using the fact that she's a woman in order to get into the debate. That's not going to end up with her winning.
Yeah.
I have a serious issue with this whole gender. Let's use the excuse when all else fails. It's because I'm a woman that I'm being excluded. No, it's because you're not polling
Popular.
well. You're not being supported, and you have to become. You have to accept that reality. So enough with the. We can't have it both ways. We can't say, I don't want my gender, me being a female, to hold me back. And then you can't also say, but because I'm a female, I want these special
You don't want it to push you
permissions.
forward either.
Right.
And I
Take
think
make your decision.
it waters down actual sexism because this isn't sexism, and I feel like that makes it.
This is not.
It's not, and I
inequality.
feel like that waters down actual inequality and sexism.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Well, then let's move forward to something that's affecting all genders, the coronavirus.
Actually, men die from that more often than women do. I just looked up the stats today.
Really
Yeah.
interesting. I didn't know that.
I mean, does it relate to the fact that women generally live longer than men?
I don't know. It probably also I don't know. I just
We
saw
wash
the
our
stats.
hands
Yeah,
more?
I was going to say maybe women
It's probably
are a
because
little
men
more
have
hygienic.
more likely to have a compromised immune system from smoking, which most men do compared to women.
Interesting.
Just as a guess, but
Yeah,
there's
there's
probably
probably
compromised immune systems.
Just yeah. I think it's not like huge. It's just more men die than women.
Well, we originally wanted to just talk about the little thing about Tim Hortons that they're stopping their roll up the rim to win cups because of the coronavirus. But since then, so many things have happened. The NBA has suspended all of their games. NAB in Las Vegas, which is the National Association of Broadcasters convention, the biggest in North America, if not the world, was canceled, as well as many other athletic competitions worldwide, the World Figure Skating Championships of some sort in Montreal, and probably worst of all, Tom Hanks and his wife have coronavirus. So,
so does Justin Trudeau now, or well, possibly.
He's
Possibly.
self-quarantining.
Yeah.
So Amara, when we did the episode on coronavirus, you said that it wasn't a big issue. Do you still feel that way?
I mean, I don't feel like it isn't a big issue. Obviously, it's spreading very fast. I feel like the first, like it appeared in December in China, and now it's in over 100 countries. That's obviously a big deal. But all I think is that we need to be cognizant of the reality of the virus and what happens, and that people who are under 50, less than like 1% die from like the coronavirus. 80% of cases don't need hospitalization. So I think we should be hygienic, wash your hands, and be a little careful, especially if you're visiting your grandparents or older relatives. But I don't think panic and hysteria is a good thing either. I don't think like buying all of the rubbing alcohol in Shoppers Drug Mart is a good idea. I think we just need to be aware of the virus and aware of what it actually does.
Do you think that we should not be too concerned about it, because it's been declared a pandemic by the World Health Organization, rather, and
I think you should be just as concerned as the numbers warrant. So I think if you're under the age of 50 and you don't have a compromised immune system, you should try to keep safe, but I don't think you should, be like personally panicking and having anxiety over it. You're most likely going to be okay. There's like almost 100% chance that you're not going to die if you get it.
Well, there is, though, the first report. Ontario just literally over an hour ago reported the first baby to have the coronavirus.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Just over an hour ago. So I don't know if that changes things.
Well, I hope the baby, when I say under 50, I also mean like healthy young people. Babies obviously also have compromised.
But I think you also have to look at the SARS epidemic. And Elvira, you were obviously very aware of what was going on. We were, probably too young to remember it. What was your experience during the SARS epidemic? It ravaged the city.
So I had a form of, I actually contracted a form of, not SARS, but there was the H1N1, and it was devastating. It was, I think I slept for 2 weeks and very unaware of my surroundings, and I kid you not when I say that. But I mean, it was. I think that we need to be serious about it, and I think that we need to be extremely cognizant of it, not dismiss it. I think that as the stats, become more and more, prevalent every day. Now, do I think that we should do social isolation as much as we possibly can? If you don't have to, don't. Don't put yourself in a position of, if you don't have to do it, then don't. However, if there's something that, drives you that you must be in a social environment, then take precautions. I don't understand why washing your hands is a new concept. I mean, doesn't everybody wash their hands and wash their hands properly? I don't mean just putting it under the tap for 10 seconds. I mean, like, vigorously wash your hands with soap.
There's people are, teaching people how to wash their hands properly and sing happy birthday in your head twice or whatever it is. And I think we should also look at what can we actually do? Like, even if you are freaking out about it, all you can really do is wash your hands and use hand sanitizer and stay home. So I don't think that mass panic really helps anyone. That's all
agreed. I mean, nothing in panic doesn't help anything in this type of a situation. I think we got to all keep cool heads, but we have to also not dismiss it and say, oh, this is just for the elderly or for the seniors. That's we shouldn't be doing that either.
Do you think that it was an appropriate response for all these events to be canceled, as well as the possibility for Ryerson to be closed?
Yeah, especially if the situation were worse in the future, the people in the future will look back and say, well, it was so reckless. Why did you hold the event? Right. Even if right now it may be, 50-50 if something could actually happen. It's just the risk. It's too much liability. And
also, even if you might not be in too much danger as a young, healthy person, you can still carry it and spread it.
Of course.
And that's dangerous. And even the 20% of cases that do require hospitalization tend to be elderly people, but our hospitals can't handle that many people. So I think, we should definitely be careful about spreading it.
Although I will tell you, and this is not a political stand because I don't really, one way or the other, but I do think that we have to give kudos to the Ontario government right now because they are taking incredible precautions. They're opening up centers where they're trying to isolate potential people that may suspect they may have it, going into hospitals. So, I mean, little things like that. And I kudos to Ontario government, unlike perhaps what we're doing. I still think that we should just kind of hold back on people coming in and out for now.
Well, speaking of that, Trump just announced that he's banning all travel to and from Europe for 30 days. So you believe Canada should have the same response?
I do. I actually do. I don't think that's panicking. I don't think that's anything. I think it's proactive. I think that we need to become a little bit proactive rather than reactive. And I find that sometimes in this situation, I think we're starting to look a little bit like we're reacting. Canadian, we as in Canadian government.
And Angela Merkel just said, I think yesterday, I think it was just briefly before Trump's announcement, that she expects that it's possible that over 70% of her Germans could be infected with it.
I heard about that
even
too.
Even if it's just older people, that's still huge swaths of the population, tens of thousands of people, especially in Germany where it's on average aged population.
And you look at you just look at Italy right now. It's under full quarantine, the entire country.
Even if it's not just old people who, even if young people have it, old people are the most at risk. So I think we should be careful with that.
All we can really do, as mentioned, is be cautious, be cognizant, wash our hands, and like you said, don't go out if you don't have to. But let's move on to a little happier news. For some people, sad for some, Harry and Meghan have officially left the royal family and their royal duties. They want to move to Canada. What's everybody's reaction to that?
We should ban their travel exclusively and no one else's.
I think people are tired, especially in North America, of hearing about the royal family. Like, I know in the UK, they're obviously more like celebrities, and it's cool, I guess, that people are royalty in 2020, but I don't really care about the royal family.
Yeah, I'm with you, girl.
But yeah, I don't really care. I know there was a lot of controversy about whether or not Canada would pay for their security. I don't think Canada should pay for their security. I'm pretty sure they can afford to pay for their security.
I don't think that's happening.
Yeah,
apparently
I
they did, though. Apparently
we
Canada
did.
secretly paid for the
But
security.
that might be. I also read. I don't know how true this is. That might be like protocol when international, high profile people come. That we would pay for their security if they're living here. I don't think we would pay for it forever.
No,
but yeah, I don't really care. Like, if they want to leave the royals, they should be able to leave the royals, and they have.
But I also think that technically they were still under the royal regime at that point. So again, protocol is that they're visitors from their high profile visitors, and that's what we do. But I mean, once they relinquish their titles, why would we, or should we?
Yeah, I don't think we are.
Well, exactly. Nor should we, because if they're prepared to live a normal life, whatever that may mean in their world, then normal life means walk the streets and take the chance.
And I'm sure that they can afford
look, Meghan, I have KFC. How quaint.
Yeah,
this is how the commoners
I'm sure they can afford their security. Like you said, normal, whatever that is for them.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure their normal is still very different than our normal. So I think they'll be okay.
Why do you think they left? Why do you think that they don't want to be part of the royal family?
Have you watched The Crown?
I have not.
Seriously, has anybody watched The Crown?
I watched the first episode.
Why wouldn't they leave?
But
I mean,
isn't it it just seems everyone kind of knows that royalty, there's a lot of rules on you. Like, I read Kate, the woman can't paint their nails a color that isn't nude. And that's just an example, but I think it's probably pretty stifling to live with all of those rules.
Guys, you are completely controlled. Completely. Yeah. I mean, I tease about the show The Crown, but I mean, there's a lot of historical facts within that document or docu-style series, and it is fascinating. If you really want a fast lesson on history, it really is a great way to learn. I mean, all kidding aside, but it also gives you a very, very dark look into the realities of how contrived and how controlled their lives are, and it actually brings you a little bit of pathos. It makes you a little bit more sensitive and caring towards the family once you see how incredibly controlled they are. And maybe they want to break away from that. I mean, you know, we don't know. We're not in their heads. And should we even care? They want to break away. Who cares? They broke away and let them live their lives.
Yeah. And I just, you know, assuming, but Harry's like Diana didn't seem to have a very good time being part of the royal family. And that was Harry's mother. So I'm sure he probably has some feelings about that. So yeah, again, like, I don't really care.
And by the way, historically, the Queen did not want the title. That's what people don't understand. She did not want the title. It was not hers to have. It was because her uncle relinquished the title. Okay. And she didn't want it. She was perfectly living, I mean, this is again part of history, but she was living a perfectly happy little life with Prince Philip, and she was given that. But now what did she do? She took that, she made the crown her priority over family and everything else. So they don't want to do that. He's never going to be prince, or sorry, he's never going to be king. So be it. Let them live their lives as they choose.
And it's like the media coverage of them has been like, it's always
horrendous.
stifling. But I think with Meghan being not
Biracial?
exactly, the normal royal. She's American. She's older than him. She's divorced. She was an actress, and she is biracial. It was horrible. So it's not surprising they don't want to deal
exactly
with that
the
anymore.
same. You mentioned the Queen's uncle. Well, he married a American divorcee. It's like
And that's why
that's
she
what
got the title.
But I agree with you. I mean, if I have friends in England, horrendous name calling of Meghan, and which is unacceptable and disgusting, quite frankly. So, I mean, they don't want to be part of, they don't need to be part of that. They don't have to put up with that, I mean, in their eyes, probably, without even having spoken to them. I imagine they're saying, what the hell am I putting up with this for?
Yeah.
You know?
There's
There's no title at the end of the rainbow.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
They're not going to be king and queen. So
Right.
So basically, we're just gonna let them live their life, and
why shouldn't we?
yeah, I guess.
Not costing us
I ask the
anything.
questions. I like to hear the responses. But just to end on that little subject, Kara has a comment that agrees with you. She says The Crown is an amazing show, so I guess maybe we should all check it out.
Oh, it's incredible.
But now let's move on to our main story, which is Millennials versus Baby Boomers. Here at the Raben Report, we've had a battle of the sexes, but now it's time for a battle of the generations, Millennials versus Baby Boomers. Millennials are people born between the years of 1986 and 1996, while Baby Boomers are those who were born between 1946 and 1964. While Amara and myself are 98 babies, and Samuel is 97, we're 96? Oh, so you are a millennial.
No.
no,
Yeah.
96 is the cusp.
96, so it's the end. Technically, you are.
No,
he's a Zoomer.
I'm a Zoomer.
We're all
97.
Zoomers.
Sorry,
No.
95 is millennial.
96.
No, it ends at 95 to be a millennial and starts at 96 to be a Gen Z.
Pretty sure it's 96 based
Yeah.
on what I've
But
read.
it all depends. Some of them start
Yeah.
in also 81, by the way.
Right.
Yeah.
More
or
so
less that.
many places will say many different things. I thought you were 97, but because you're 96, it's even better. And even though Amara and myself are 98 babies, for the purpose of this show, we'll be considered millennials because we're close enough. But with special guest Elvira Caria, our team will examine the differences between these two generations, from education to affordability and family. Okay, Boomer? Or should I say, okay, Zoomer? Stay tuned to find out. As a reminder, we are live on Facebook, so make sure to comment on our feed to have your thoughts read live on air. Let's start with education and workforce. How has education changed between generations? Elvira, let's start with you.
Oh, I think the obvious is that millennials are far more educated than baby boomers. Now, that's an obvious statement. It's a factual statement. Reason being, obviously, there was, opportunity. At the time, baby boomers were, if we completed high school, in most cases, entering into the workforce, you could be okay with a high school diploma. I am a university graduate. I have a Bachelor of Arts degree. I have a double honors degree, and I actually have a 1 year, other sort of things that could equate to a master's. So I maybe sort of one of the more educated baby boomers, although I don't know if that's really true. So I think that at that point, entering into the workforce, high school was okay, and I don't think that is the case whatsoever with millennials. In fact, I think that anything even you need above a Bachelor of Arts to even enter into the workforce at this point.
It's interesting. Speaking of Bachelor of Arts, you're right. I mean, 43% of millennial women, according to Pew Social Trends, hold bachelor's degrees versus 24% of late boomers. So that's the end of the boomer generation. But we talked about on the show previously that the value of a degree isn't what it is anymore. So
right.
Do you still think that we need more degrees, even though it's, a lot of people aren't going to school anymore or avoiding university? Even though we're more educated, there are a lot more different pathways.
I think the value of the degree right now is very inflated. You could almost say it's a bubble. And as I think more younger people go through the education system, and there's these stories in the media, from friend to friend about, I graduated, I couldn't find a job, it's so difficult. I hope, to be honest, that eventually passes down to people that are in high school and maybe even before, that maybe university isn't all cut out as it is. I think it's too costly. Job prospects just aren't there, and it's something's got to change. Yeah,
I agree. The thought of you need something more than a high school diploma for sure to get a good job.
Yes.
And a lot of people, I've heard people call Bachelors of Arts high school diplomas now because everybody has one. So I would say, absolutely. And I as well hope that people start being cognizant of that. But it sort of feels like there's nothing to do. Obviously there's trades, but not everybody's just, physically going to do that. So I feel like it just sort of feels like there's not any other viable options.
Well, I'll tell you, and I don't want to mention the company, but I know firsthand that huge technology, global technology company is actually what they're doing is they're taking high school students and actually bringing them into what is an equivalent of, let's say, bachelor degree, but very specifically towards technology, so that they're training them within that. In other words, they're investing in their people. And so that may actually help go from education to position to a job immediately. Whereas once you get your education, it's like, now what? Now you're unemployed. You're unemployed with a great education.
It's almost like it sounds like an apprenticeship, but
it is, but it's very interesting. They are, they're very specific not to call it apprenticeship because they don't want it sounding that way. It's a global company. It's tech sort of they're leaders in the technology world, but it is let's call a spade a spade. It's an apprenticeship, and they're training them in their scope of their corporate culture. So you're training them to sort of, I don't know if drink their Kool-Aid. I mean, that's a kind of a negative way of putting it, but at least it encourages the education aspect of it.
Well, speaking of encouraging education, something that's discouraging, as Samuel mentioned, is the cost. Why is education so costly now?
Oh, you're going to have to ask the government that. I have no idea. That's to me, it's absurd. There's places in Europe that post-secondary is free. I don't know. Is it the baby boomers' fault? Is it our fault? I don't know. I know the millennials like to blame baby boomers on everything, but is it our fault why the education system is I don't know.
I think it's
I don't agree with it, however.
Predatory loans. I think universities are businesses and they make money, and they know that OSAP or the government will make up whatever tuition is, and students will be able to rely on student loans in order to go to school, so they can, double or triple the prices. And they know that OSAP will make that up. And in the end, we're the ones who are losing, because not only do we now have degrees that can't get us jobs, but we have debt, and way more debt than we would have had decades ago. So we are left footing the bill for universities making more money.
I think the paradigm would need to change, where you would it's difficult to tell high school students
anything.
That everything you've learned is, I guess, a lie. So it would have to change institutionally, where they would have to tell these young people, look, this is how much debt you're going to get saddled with. Yep.
And these
these
are
are your
job
prospects.
Yeah.
How are you going to pay that off? Is it going to take 10 years, 15 years, 20 years? People are paying off their mortgage alongside their student loan debt. I mean, that doesn't sound right.
Sorry, my apologies. I do want to stress something though. Yes, there is more student debt. But with the higher education, it actually equals higher paying jobs. So somewhere along the way, it balances itself out. It may seem like doom and gloom at the time that you're in that debt load, but it does provide higher quality paying jobs.
But just to counteract that, according to, again, Pew Social Trends, millennials are earning lower than their boomers at the same age.
Hold on. That's such a general.
Well,
at the
like
same
these are people
age?
at the same age as baby boomers were at the time that millennials are right now. So between 25 and 37, they're earning less than baby boomers did when they were that age.
But you're not in the market. You're starting the market. You're going into the workforce later. So baby boomers started younger.
Right.
So we were in the workforce at a younger age.
But if we're more educated, shouldn't that kind of balance out as well? Shouldn't we be able to access higher paying jobs coming out of school?
So I'm going to give the millennials a little reality check, and I hate to say this to you. Yes, you will eventually fast track the higher paying jobs quicker than, let's say, baby boomers did, but you still got to start at an entry level position.
I think what Elliot means is the wages upon graduation when they were, say, 25,
right.
30 years ago compared to the wages now when people graduate, it was higher back then than it is now. Is that correct?
That's exactly
Comparatively
what I mean.
speaking, from a lifestyle perspective, is that what you mean? Like from a living?
Yes. Yeah, because it's more expensive to live, but the wages are lower.
Yeah, they haven't risen
They
in
haven't-
accordance with how much more expensive it is.
We have not kept up with that. That's definitely, I mean, that's a whole different topic. We have not kept up with the standard of living, if that's what you're asking, or if that's what you're stating. Yeah.
One of the main things, there's many factors that contribute to this, depression of wages with increasing costs of living. But one of them, I especially in the skilled trades, we were mentioning that tech company. I'm surprised really that they even have that initiative. The easiness in which Canadian companies can fly in workers from overseas with the equivalent of whatever the Canadian version of an H-1B visa is insane. I mean, graduates are expected to saddle themselves with so much debt in Canada, never mind the U.S., and then when they graduate, okay, I'm not competing with my fellow peers that just graduated alongside me in this city, this region, this country. I have to compete globally with someone in a less developed country that will accept a living standard much lower than mine. And what does that do? It's an oversupply of labor. The wages are going to go down. It's no wonder things have stagnated so much.
And there's also a lot more precarious employment nowadays. There's a lot more contract work, and there's the gig economy, which is a huge thing right now. Yeah. Uber doesn't provide benefits or a pension or anything like that. So young people, with all of the things we've mentioned, they have debt. It's harder for them to get jobs, and the jobs aren't paying as well. And then they don't even have they're supplementing their income with jobs in the gig economy, and that doesn't help either. So,
and this all causes people to forego having families at a young age,
and buying houses and getting married,
or just not even imagining that they could do that in the future, and that's terrible for a country.
Well, most young people don't. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say we're going to talk about marriage and family a little later on, but go forward.
I could save it for the next section, but I was just going to say that young people today, like our generation, if your parents don't own a home, don't really feel like they're going to own one, and especially not in the city or the GTA, and probably not in Southern Ontario in general.
I have a comment from Cassie right here. If it's okay,
yeah, go ahead.
Read it out. Okay, she says millennials earn less money than their boomer counterparts, but what's more important to consider is our buying power is significantly less. So even if we made dollar for dollar the same amount, it doesn't get us far.
Yeah, it hasn't risen with the cost of living because the cost of living is higher too.
Okay, whose fault is that? Are we blaming the baby boomers? Why?
I think we should blame neoliberalism and
the
globalization.
people they voted for, I guess, is the problem. The standards of living the standards of living they expected and didn't understand that it would cause intergenerational debt that someone has to pay off.
Well, I mean, I don't want to skip ahead, but I just feel like there's an attitude from some boomers. I don't want to paint a whole generation with the same brush that we just don't work hard enough, and I think that that's ridiculously unfair considering what each of our generations have to contend with when we're coming of age.
What's your response to that, Elvira?
Oh boy! All right, I am going to open up a can of worms. So this is not, this is for the point of discussion. It does not umbrella the millennials, just like it should umbrella all the baby boomers. But what does that mean exactly? That you're not working harder?
Well, I mean, okay, so I think there's an attitude that we're entitled, that older people.
But you
feel
are
like,
entitled. But you feel you are entitled. We have created an
entitlement in us.
I believe, yes, and you're not to blame. So you will learn if somebody gets to know me. Yes, I'm a baby boomer, but I will never throw the millennials under the bus, and I'll tell you why. Because somebody created the millennial generation. If we are saying that millennials are entitled, well, who the heck make them entitled? Well, the baby boomers, the parents did. Now, why? The question remains why, and what does that mean, and how far did we go? I mean, I have a whole slew of reasoning behind all of this. First of all, millennials have never failed in school because we removed that. We removed that aspect of failure. It's okay to fail. It's okay to fail. I mean, I was fast-tracked. I skipped a grade, and there was, friends of mine that failed a grade. And yes, there was a social aspect that we were now 2 years apart from a school classroom perspective. Did that harm our socialization? I don't think so. But I think what failure does is it teaches you, to get back up and say, damn it, I'm going to do better. And second, it actually creates skills that have to be carried over into workforces and into marriages, or if you choose to marriage, any relationship. Quite honestly, you don't have to get married anymore. I don't know if I even believe in having to walk down the aisle. I'm with you guys on that one. But it's a skill that needs to be learned, and you need to know how to handle failure. And I think that baby boomers, irony alert, have failed the millennials on teaching you about failure.
And that's kind of the whole participation trophy idea too. And a lot of people
100%.
blamed young people for that, but 7-year-old kids playing house league soccer didn't make the participation trophies for themselves. But I think also when I feel like about entitlement, I think we're entitled to the same opportunities that generations before us had, and the same opportunities in building our lives. And I don't think that we're getting that. So I think that the entitlement that older people are talking about is not necessarily that, but I think we are entitled to that.
I think we don't want more. We just want
the same.
But is the same possible? Because the circumstances are different.
The same is possible, but people are not willing, like the 1%. Business owners.
We can talk about economics later. I have a couple.
I don't think they're willing to give us the same. I think it's just different. Like Samuel mentioned, outsourcing work. It was a lot. I mean, I didn't live then, but it seemed like it was a lot different back in the day, where you could, support a family and have a job that wasn't outsourced to Mexico or something like that. And when the CEO was more willing to do that than to foster, prosperity in his own community, that's what's different. So it is possible. Some people are just greedy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm actually reading one of the comments
Cassidy's,
on Facebook. Yeah. Cassidy, I love it. I mean, I'm a baby boomer, and she's throwing me under the bus, and that's okay. Sure. She reads, the baby boomers gutted the economy, so yes, we feel entitled to live the same quality of life that the boomers before us got to. Most millennials I know feel deeply jaded that they will likely never exist in the same level of middle-class prosperity their own parents did. And I'm going to agree, and I am so incredibly saddened by that. Because I actually don't think, I think that the boundary, or the middle class boundary is being blurred right now.
Yes.
Do we even have a middle class? I don't think so. And if is it the baby boomers that created this lack of, middle class? Cassidy is suggesting yes, absolutely.
I think
I don't know.
There's a general malaise over, I think, people my age, especially men. I think because I'm going to make a generalization. They're the ones in discussions that I have that they'll more openly maybe talk about a family, a home in the future. Maybe it's just my age.
Maybe
thing.
with you. Maybe because you're a man. You have male friends who talk to you about things like that.
That's very possible. But I've totally come to the realization that for me to have even close to what my parents had, barring a complete miracle or
a lottery win or something
lottery,
like that.
Or if I, attained a PhD in a very specialized field, I'd have to go to the sticks
Yes.
to own land and
Yeah.
have a family and afford to have a family. And
Is that what you want? Do you want? Because millennials like
Yeah.
the urban lifestyle. I mean,
That's. I think that's the
Right?
like the white picket fence, right middle class
Got it.
life with 2 cars and a
Doesn't
dog.
exist.
It doesn't exist.
Right.
Well, that's
the
not
the suburban
the
sort
dream
of
that exists. Just it's now like upper middle class.
Sure.
It's not regular people.
Sure.
Like we can't afford that anymore. And I think millennials or Generation Z, like younger people, we're just kind of having to, I guess, come to terms with the reality of our lives and maybe try to satisfy ourselves with that. So I don't think that there's, genuinely less people that want to have children or get married or own homes. I just think that we realize that we're probably not going to be able to afford it. So you kind of try to, I guess, like what you can do.
Okay, so rather than pointing a finger and saying baby boomers did this, we're here now, unfortunately. Unfortunately, let's blame whoever. But what are millennials? Because you are in the workforce. Well, a lot of the younger or sorry,
Older
the first right,
yeah.
the older millennials. What are you doing to change that? Because every generation had pioneers in affecting change, social change, economic change. What are millennials doing? Are you just sitting in a corner going boo-hoo, look at
think that's
me,
where-
my parents are at fault?
I think that's where the gig economy comes in. I think a lot of young people are trying to supplement their income with doing things like driving for Uber or delivering for Instacart or something like that. But I also think, especially in the States, in terms of student loans, it's stifling. People are living barely paycheck to paycheck, so there's not necessarily much you can do when you can barely afford to live.
Right.
Unfortunately, in the States right now, it seems like young people aren't going out to vote, and I think that obviously would make the biggest difference.
Right.
And I hope that the economic reality, as it gets harsher on young people, it spurs them on to go vote for people because, Joe Biden's not going to change. I don't want to get too American political, but Joe Biden's not going to change anything for young people or regular people. We need to elect people like Bernie Sanders who are going to actually make differences in the lives of the 99%.
How about the concept of maybe young people, millennials, actually entering the political world?
I think that's
how
great
else
as
are you
well.
going to affect change and change legislature? You need to have those type of mindsets in politics, in the legislature.
Wouldn't you say though that a lot of the time young people want to go into politics and older people tell them, well, you're not experienced enough,
Yes.
like back down.
It's not even just that. I think
dismissed.
there's muddied interests. I mean, you could say the older people, they have their own set of I guess priorities. Obviously, it's in the U.S. it's maintaining Social Security and Medicare, but that cohort will always drown out because simply that it's larger will always drown out the younger cohort. And I also think younger people, they have this kind of I know it's not exclusively to younger people, but they have this sort of nihilism towards electoral politics and how it seems like, especially if you're further left than I am, that nothing really does ever change. You have these bursts of excitement and then it ends up being nothing in the end.
But that's a problem, and that is precisely the point, because eventually the Bernie Saunders of the world, who are in his 70s, are going to die off, and then who is fighting for you?
AOC, people like that, I think.
Who's
Younger
fighting
politicians.
for you? Then that's why you need to get involved. The problem is that, and sorry, Elliot, you made a comment about, the baby, whoever, older generations are saying, oh, you're not experienced enough. Have we looked at our politicians? I got news for you. You don't need to be that experienced to be putting your name in a ballot. What you need are fresh ideas. What you need are, I don't know, are they ideologies? I mean, as long as you can implement some of your ideologies, then I would encourage. I'm a baby boomer. I would almost implore your generation to get involved in on a political level, because that's the only way or a lobbyist. That's the only way you're going to affect change, is if you are the change.
But even we say hypothetically that a younger politician or a politician thrust into the stage by a younger group was put forward, their government would be saddled with so much debt that they couldn't even implement these, I guess, visionary policies that would benefit us. So it seems like they're just up against the wall.
And I think that like a politician that I would say is a younger Bernie Sanders would be like AOC, right? She endorsed him. They're probably identical politically, and she's a young woman of color, and I'm sure this is very highly partisan and political, but one of the main things people used to attack her was that she was a bartender or that she was young. So I think there is a political establishment, and a lot of it is older people, and they don't take young people seriously. So I think it would be difficult to be taken seriously enough to be a political leader.
And Cassidy has another comment coming in relating to this discussion. Us voting in change is again functionally impossible. Boomers are still a massive political group and actively voting against policies that would aid younger generations. Elvira, you disagree?
Totally disagree.
Why?
That is a cop-out. It's a cop-out answer. And that is precisely what I'm trying to say, is that you want to sit in a corner and lick your wounds. Actually, it is now, I believe in the last few years that the millennial, there is a higher percentage of qualified voters of your generation than there are baby. It is the first that have surpassed seniors or baby boomers. It's you're not showing up. You are not engaged in the process. And that is a cop-out. That's a cop-out answer. Functionally boomers are still a massive political group. Yes, we are. But guess what? Soars. Now we've got millennials and Generation Z that are qualifiers in the voting, in our voting world. So affect change by becoming part of that change.
So let's talk about effecting that change and becoming part of it in terms of the gender roles in society. They've changed dramatically in the workforce, for example. As I mentioned earlier, 43% of millennial women hold bachelor degrees, outpacing men in education. So with that being said, there's more women in the workforce. Has that helped our society? Samuel, I'd like to go to you.
No, I disagree. I disagree strongly, especially if you want to talk. Well, I want to go back to the Women's Day, and that was a holiday that started not in Russia. To be very specific.
Can I just interrupt? I feel like calling it a holiday.
It is certainly not a holiday.
It's a day. Like there's like an International Pancakes Day. That's not a holiday. I feel like that's kind of like
that should be a holiday.
It's a calendar. It's
exaggerating
a calendar day.
what it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Go on.
Women's Day, which is supported by multinational corporations or promoted by multinational corporations, governments everywhere. It wasn't just started in Russia. It was Soviet Russia who wanted to equalize the playing field. No class, no gender, no race, no religion. I mean, there was a reason for that, right? It was total equality, no matter what the social consequence. So in bringing that back to Canada, is it good that there's more women in the workforce? Absolutely not. They're starting families later. They're saddled the same debt and responsibilities that men have. And there's more people working. Wages decrease because there's a surplus of labor supply.
You think that's because of women?
No, not entirely. It's a factor. It's a factor just like immigration is, like I mentioned earlier.
I also want to touch back upon, you said that International Women's Day is backed by multinational corporations and all that. The same can be said for Father's Day, Mother's Day, all these actual holidays.
Sure, but
Halloween.
Pride, Black History Month.
Like, come on.
Okay,
what is the point here? Sorry, I don't understand.
Why would they promote it besides just like, oh, it's a fun little holiday? Well, talking about left-wing people always have this idea that they're anti-establishment, the man. Corporations, big firms have an interest in having everybody working because they can hire people at lower wages. These aren't, they don't have good intentions. It's very insidious.
So
I want to answer that for 2 seconds with statistics.
Okay, thank you.
Because it's only way you can answer that type of
Go ahead. I'm excited.
thought process.
Please.
1891. This is Canadian women stats.
Okay.
Wrap your head around this. 1891, 41% of women in the labor force were employed as domestics. Okay? So it starts there. By 1901, women made up 13.4% of the total paid labor. Okay. By 1921, women made up 15.4% of the paid labor force. In 1931, it went up to 17%. In 1941, it went up 19.9% of the workforce. However, by 1975, women made up almost 50% of the workforce, but they were still earning only 60 cents for every dollar earned by men. That's a fact. That's 1975. By 1978, the Canada Labour Code was amended to eliminate pregnancy as a basis for layoff or dismissal. By 1978, 78 airline flight attendants gained the right to work after marriage and after they reach the age of 32. Female. Airline flight attendants gained the right to work after marriage. Now let's look at 1990. 1990, male managers earned an average salary of $48,000, while women, exact same job, earned $27,000. These are stats. By 1995, women made up more than half the labor force, still grossly underpaid compared to the male counterparts. In 2009, women have exceeded men in the labor market, but guess what? We're still grossly underpaid.
In fact, I think those stats back everything I just said.
I don't think so.
Because you can see exactly since the 60s.
So you think we ruined it?
No. Ruined, I think,
Well,
unintentionally.
you did say.
Unintentionally ruined the
Hold
labor
on,
market.
one at a time. So, Samuel.
I think those stats back everything I said. There was, as women gained further rates of participation in the workforce, wages stagnated. I think it's not even arguable. In the 60s, especially when you said it surpassed, was it the 60s or did you say 70 something?
70s?
70s. And I'm thinking about U.S. stats I've seen particularly.
Okay, this
about
is
these
Canadian, very specifically.
We do live in
Canadian.
Canada.
Yes, I know, but the labor market
okay,
and the
more or
rates
less,
of female to male participation in the workforce is very similar.
So-
I'm just going to finish.
Okay.
I'm almost done because
I
I'll
hope
be
so.
incoherent
Okay.
if I don't. In the 60s, that's the point exactly where wages really haven't gone that much higher since that point. And that's exactly the same amount of time, ballpark estimate,
Yep, you're
that
correct.
women entered the workforce. So, it was a very gradual change, but as we saw the labor increasing over time, there was a suppression in wages for men and women.
So before
Can I just give another, my apology, very quickly. In 1882, the Toronto Trades and Labor Council supported equal pay for equal work. 1882. So women haven't entered the workforce in the 1970s or 60s. Actually, women have always been working. It was domestic style labor. First. Sorry, because this infuriates me. Actually, women didn't stagnate the salary aspect. What happened is that still, even though men were still dominating the workforce, and by the way, they still do from a salary perspective. So for me, the way I look at it is that why didn't the equality, why has it taken us this long to have the equality aspect? Is it the disrespect of women? It's not because there's more women in the workforce.
what's interesting is we
Can
actually
I be honest?
Yeah.
I'm actually the breadwinner in the family. That hasn't hurt my family. It hasn't hurt my family. I'm the breadwinner in the family.
And that's an interesting point because we talked about that, and Sam, you said that women shouldn't be the breadwinner.
Gosh.
I don't think that's an ideal, but I can understand the outliers.
Okay, Amara, you've been wanting to respond.
Yeah. So there's a lot Samuel said originally and a lot he said after that. But I think so we can talk about having a 2-income household being necessary to raise a family nowadays.
Sure.
I think that a lot of times talking about wages stagnating is used as a covert way to imply that women ruined the workforce or women shouldn't be working or women can't be breadwinners, which is absolutely ridiculous, obviously. I think the fact that it's
Do you have any facts for that?
for
her
thinking
finish.
it's ridiculous, I
That
think it's ridiculous.
Doesn't play a factor in it?
So
Okay.
am I gonna
Let's
I feel
let
like I
Amara
didn't
finish.
interrupt him, but all right.
It's okay.
I lost my train of thought now, but I think that the fact that it's necessary for there to be a 2-income household nowadays that is a problem. But again, it doesn't have to be women staying home. Women working isn't evil, didn't ruin the world. And you mentioned a lot about corporations liking International Women's Day. Corporations like to do a lot of things that people like. Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, Father's Day, those are things we call hallmark holidays because they're kind of created and used in a way to make money. So corporations are going to do anything for money. And I also just wanted to say, I don't think people on the left think they're anti-establishment. I think people who are anti-establishment think they're anti-establishment. So I don't think the entire left thinks International Women's Day is anti-establishment. I don't know how you could I don't know, see Google's doodle on International Women's Day and think that it's anti-establishment. Also, not everything has to be anti-establishment.
So we actually have a comment from Cassidy again that actually disagrees with both you, Amara, and Elvira. She says women in the workforce lowered wages significantly. I'm not saying women shouldn't be in the workplace, but it did change the landscape of the workplace in a big way. What's your response, Elvira?
I disagree. I think I already made that very clear. I disagreed. What it did is it just put more people in the workforce. Again, here we go back to why women versus males. Like, if the jobs were there and they fulfilled a job, that somebody needed to fulfill those factory jobs or those, domestic jobs. What if it was a whole bunch of men?
Well, I think that, like I said before, I think we can have a conversation about stagnating wages and the necessity for a two-parent household. But I think a lot of the times the hyper-focus on women, do we really have to ask why that happens? I think it's obvious. And I think that there's a lot of men who don't have a vested interest in undermining women's work. And I think there are some men that do. And I don't know why they do, but I think that's why.
I think any 50% change in the labor supply, whether it's immigration or one sex suddenly entering the workforce and one not, I think that it was worthy of discussion no matter what.
I didn't say it wasn't worthy of discussion.
That's a whole different topic on a different day.
Let's continue on this subject though about family, and we talked a little about women in the workforce, but Samuel, you touched upon how this has changed the family dynamic, as well as you, Elvira. You said that less millennials are getting married. Why?
Can I answer?
Yeah.
Why less millennials are getting married?
Yeah.
Because they can't afford to. Because marriage is expensive. I also
is that the only reason?
No, I don't
or
think
is it
it's
just
the
because
only
they
reason.
don't feel like it?
I think people are also just less religious as time progresses. So a lot of millennials probably don't see the necessity for marriage if they're not religious. Common law marriages are very common nowadays. People live together and, effectively, like legally, you get the tax benefits or whatever of marriage. So I think a lot of people, just considering the fact that people don't really have a lot of spare money, you don't need a whole wedding, but marriage in general, you have to buy a marriage certificate. It's not necessary.
I don't even think it's that. I think it's just much to his demise and his probably just I don't know, disagreement. I think you have to remember that many, moons ago, marriage was also an opportunity for the woman, obviously, to start her own life.
Yeah, leave her home and stuff.
Yeah, to sort of, that isn't necessary anymore. I don't think it says good, bad, or ugly. It doesn't matter. That is probably a fact. And I don't think that, I think there's many reasons why people aren't getting married. Why? So to your point that there maybe isn't as a strong religious, I don't even know if I even want to go there. I think that women are just more independent. I don't feel that I need to rely on that income, that husband to bring home money. I still believe in the institution of marriage. I'm gonna tell you, I've done it twice, but this is marriage number 2, and kind of got it right the second time. But the point is, I'm being facetious right now. The point is, I don't think it's a conscious decision not to get married. I think that there's other factors. There's economy. There's lifestyle. There's acceptance. Like what is necessary, what isn't. There was a time when a woman was pregnant, and they had to tell the guy, and the guy rushed they rushed to the altar. That doesn't necessarily
a lot of 13-pound premature babies being born.
Right. That doesn't necessarily have to happen anymore.
Now, do you think that with less people getting married, then we're obviously having less children, and how is that? No?
We're having less children
children
because people cannot afford to have children.
Sure.
Babies are expensive. Raising a child is expensive. Not only are we making less and everything costs more, but everything else is costing more. Childcare in Ontario is ridiculously expensive. For some families, it's cheaper for one parent to stay home and not work than work and put their child in childcare. And even just things like university, all it's been doing is getting more expensive. How expensive would university be if I had a child right now in 18 years?
But what's interesting is I feel like even your generation, when a lot of people, when they were younger, they said, oh, I don't want to have kids. And then when they get older, they realize they want kids. Do you think that's going to be the same for millennials?
Listen, I don't know. To me, it was... I wasn't raised, and I'm a baby boomer. I come from a traditional, whatever that may mean, Italian family, immigrant family, just in general. I wasn't raised where my end goal, where the girl's end goal was supposed to be marriage. I was actually raised quite the contrary, and I give kudos to my parents doing that. I was actually raised as the only female to be extremely independent, and that independence meant get an education and fend for yourself. So maybe that made me a little bit ahead of the curve from my other, baby boomer colleagues and cohorts, female cohorts. But I wasn't. My end goal growing up was like sometimes you see these shows like Say Yes to the Dress, and you see these girls that are like 30 years old. All I ever dreamed about was this. I didn't. I don't care what dress I was wearing at my wedding. And I really had a very different mindset. And I applaud the millennial generation for having that mindset that, even if you want to get married, it's not the big show. It's not the big, 300 people and invite people that
$100,000.
Like, it's ridiculous.
I'm going through that right now, actually. I'm getting married in May.
Are you?
Yeah.
Let's talk about it. Is there pressure on you?
For my parents...
Baby boomer
Yes,
boomer
they are baby
parents.
boomers, yeah.
That they have to have the big show?
No.
Oh.
I think that's probably very unique to them.
I love
Because
that.
my experience from other people my age and a little bit older is that they want that big show.
Sure.
Go into debt.
Right.
Well, I
crazy.
think that our millennials' financial position is changing a lot of things, because I think even if you did dream of a big wedding as a little girl, like
Sure.
you're not going to be able to afford that.
Can I tell
right
you
now.
something?
Dream of eating too.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to tell you, as a baby boomer, one of my things is we like to hoard money. Baby boomers try and save, because I don't know whether we can or whether we just, again, that's another thing that millennials maybe don't even have the opportunity to save. Right. So baby boomers did, and we're saving for our kids, and that is a reality. So let's say thank you, mom and dad. However, if my child, let's just sake of argument, I have $50,000 that I'm gonna allocate to my child that eventually is gonna get married. Do I give you that $50,000 and you can go blow it on a one-day show equating to marriage, or do I give you $50,000 and if you're smart, you're going to take that $50,000 and you're going to go and invest in either real estate, like whatever,
make an
whatever
investment.
throws you into the market, and then you can generate your own revenue. And so I've given you a kickstart, basically. That is. Listen, I'm not unrealistic. That is certainly not the case with every baby boomer giving their millennial child money. But I'm telling you that is a lot of baby boomers' sort of end goals is working for our kids. I want to. My bank account tells me I can't retire. I'm 57. I'm going to be 57. Do I want to retire at age 60? Damn right I do. Do I qualify at age 65? Yes. I don't want to work until then. I'm seeing friends of mine dying. Like my friends are not making it to 65, or they're living like my parents' age, are living till they're 100, quite frankly. So I want to be able to live that. But my choices as a baby boomer parent is I'm working longer so that I actually can help my millennial child, because maybe it's guilt, maybe we did create that, but it hurts me. It hurts me as a parent to know that you're
in a
gonna
mess.
Yes, it does.
Elliot, sorry, just wanted to. You said the thing about people who are younger saying they don't want to have kids. I think that's just like natural. I think it's a lot of
too. I didn't
16
think
and
about having
17-year-olds.
kids.
Like some of them do. Some little girls
I
dream
do.
of.
I think about having kids.
Well, okay, exactly. Some people do dream of having children. I know friends of mine who've been dreaming and have baby names and then have had them since they were 9. But then there are people who are 16, 17, 18 and say they don't want to have kids, and that changes in their 20s. I think that's just kind of a natural biological thing.
Yeah, I think I thought of this, but I didn't bring it up. The ease in which beat up millennials, or I guess society tells millennials, they don't want that. Oh, they want to be urban. They want to be moving place constantly. They want to have no kids. Like, how much of that is conditions that are put upon them?
How much of that is a choice?
Oh, they're moving constantly. It's probably because their jobs are precarious and their rents are increasing very quickly. And you talk about even precarious work. It's probably because their wages aren't good and they can find something else better. Or not having children. Like, it's affordability thing. To say that, these millennials, they want something different. I don't know.
Like,
people
in
are
general, millennials are having less kids, and I would say overall, I would say that's just because they can't afford it. There's obviously, I think, social and other factors and just lifestyle changes and progress in general. But I think overall, I don't think that if we could afford it, it would be substantially lower than our parents.
Now let's move to the final portion of the discussion, which is the intergenerational conversations, because you mentioned, Elvira, you mentioned that you want to be able to help your kids. So let's talk about that. Starting with something a little bit controversial, is the term "okay boomer" offensive? Now, before anyone answers, we asked the question to our friends on Facebook who are tuning in. And Sam, what are the results?
Sure. So the question was, do you think the term "okay boomer" is offensive? 29% said yes, it is rude, and 71% said no, it's a joke, with 48 votes. And
48 votes
said,
total? Okay.
14 said yes, it's rude, which included my mother. I didn't see that. Sorry, Mom. And 34 said no, it's a joke.
Did I say no, it's a joke? I know I voted.
No, you said it's rude.
Oh, I didn't know it. I didn't. I think I hit the wrong. I don't even care.
Well,
As a boomer, I don't even know. What the hell does that even
I've
mean?
heard people say
so
that
I
it's
just wanna-
What did it
comparable.
mean? I had to look it up. I didn't even know what the hell it meant.
I just want to mention our Facebook poll, our Instagram poll. We had 19 votes, 17 said no, and 2 said yes. And so pretty much it's used to counter.
It's a meme.
Go on.
a meme.
I was just gonna say it's not usually used in like actual conversation
No.
with
Yeah.
older people. It's usually something that like you'd reply to like a Joe Biden. I don't like Joe Biden. He
Okay.
said something about how he hears that young people complain and he doesn't have any empathy. He was obviously talking to an older crowd,
Wow.
and somebody might have quoted that and said, "Okay, boomer." Like it's kind of like that. It's not really.
Is
something...
it like a dismissive comment?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yes,
yeah, whatever.
exactly.
Yeah,
Is it like
exactly.
a whatever?
Yeah, that's
got
what
it.
it's like.
Got it. Okay.
I think
Okay.
Do you
Okay,
think that's
millennial.
offensive?
No.
I've heard someone
Have you
people
ever
say.
Has anybody ever heard a boomer talk to their parents before that? Every generation thinks their parents are dumb, and they're smarter than their parents. I don't find that offensive at all. I don't find it offensive.
I'm glad that this is the boomer
Yeah.
representation.
What's that?
I said I'm glad that you're the boomer representation that we
I
have.
don't
'Cause
find
they've-
that offensive.
I've heard people say that it's comparable to the N-word, which is obviously ridiculous. I don't think anyone really thinks that. But
What?
I think that a lot of times
That's a millennial saying that because that's way too
No,
sensitive.
it was a boomer.
A
On
boomer?
Fox News or something. It was
Jeez.
ridiculous. But I think a lot of times it's used when people I think when it's evident that the older person who's speaking doesn't understand the realities of life. So
Sure.
saying that young people should just, the classic pick themselves up by the
Get
bootstraps
up off
comment
your arse and go get a job.
or people who,
Don't cry in a
when you're
corner.
trying to get your first ever job in high
Sure.
school, say, just go in there and don't take no for an answer and ask for the manager. And that's just not how.
Hello, security.
Yeah, exactly. I've worked jobs, and when you get resumes, we were told to throw them out. The world is just different. So I think it's kind of
I
used
agree.
in that way when it's just okay.
So I am, full disclosure, I'm purely guilty of when my son was looking for a job. I'm like, just go to the mall, go print out your resumes. And he's like, nobody talks to you anymore. It's like,
yeah, when I
is that
worked at
possible?
retail and we would
Yeah.
get resumes, and it would
Exactly.
always be like a kid with you could see their parent
Right.
back there,
Yeah.
and we would throw them
Classic.
out unless we knew them personally and we
Right.
could vouch for them. We'd throw them out. You do
which I
hiring
find
online.
utterly ridiculous because poor kids that have to go to a McDonald's, just submit everybody needs.
And not to mention that
go online to go and fill out
and they're so
are you kidding me?
ridiculously annoying
Yeah,
to fill out on the
submit
line.
your resume, and now in
Yeah.
And for everything.
individual fields put this
Yes.
exact same data.
And also, not to mention the fact that it's harder to find employment even with a degree. A lot of high school students are competing with university students and older people with more flexible schedules
Yes. Yeah.
for these minimum wage part-time jobs. So it's even harder for them.
Agreed.
And this comes back to the question that we talked about earlier in the show. Do millennials work less hard, as hard, or harder than baby boomers? Because again, you look at the way people have to find jobs. You
I
said,
think they work harder for less. That's what I would say.
Elvira.
Look, I think that we had. Okay, let me. Okay,
You wanna
ask
come
me
back?
the question again. Yeah, because
you
I have to be
think-
very careful how
Do-
Yeah.
Yeah. Do millennials work less hard, as hard, or harder than baby boomers?
Okay, I have a really. I don't know. And maybe I'm the wrong baby boomer to be here because maybe I'm not as controversial. I actually have pure pathos for the millennial generation. And I really do. And I can't believe that I'd say in most cases, I almost apologize to the millennial. Again, we go back to the same thing. I almost apologize to your generation because we did create, obviously we created that. However, having said that, there's an issue that I have a big issue with the millennial generation is that there is that sense of instant gratification. You cannot, yes, you're highly educated. Yes, you're highly skilled. But I said it at the offset of the beginning of the show where, yes, you have a master's degree now and you're going into the workforce. Nobody is going to hire you as the VP of something because you have the educational background and skill that will probably fast track you. millennials have a faster way of getting to where the baby boomers got, simply because of the education aspect, right? So you have a master's degree, let's say, equally, I only had, I have more, but let's say I only had a high school diploma. And now I'm a VP because I stayed there for 30 years and I earned.
That's the thing.
Right.
I don't think that millennials are expecting to be hired as a VP right after school.
Really? Because I talk to millennials and I can tell you that.
Well, they're stupid.
Yeah,
No,
those
you're
people are
not
ridiculous.
stupid.
No, they
Oh,
are
they're
stupid.
no. Oh,
Not
right.
us.
One of
We're
the-
geniuses here.
Yes, absolutely. I
They're
have no
stupid.
doubt. Yeah.
But I think that it's more the idea that getting that job out of high school and being able to stay there for 30 years, that opportunity doesn't exist anymore. So even for people with bachelor's degrees, it's more precarious employment than this job with benefits and a pension and a good salary.
I want to give you an example. This is my story. I graduated in university in 1986 with a mass communications degree, and then went back for another year for specifically journalism. I took a job at the Toronto Sun newspaper. I took a job as a circulation manager. Do you know what that means in fancy terms? It's a circulation manager. What it means downplaying is I took care of, you guys would know because you didn't have this at the time, home delivery.
Paper boys?
Paper boy, yeah. So I was the manager of the paper girls, paper boys, paper deliveries. And what happens is, what nobody told me is, I took the job, because I knew, and I tell my students this, that I teach somewhere, that I always say, get in that door and get that pass, that security pass, because it brings you into the building, and then you can go and network and go and meet people and work your way up, which is exactly what I did. I took a job my first weekend that I had. I worked. One of the kids didn't show up to deliver their paper. University degree girl, manager, was delivering newspapers on Jameson Avenue in apartments in Parkdale. And the entire time I delivered, I think 150 papers, and, looking at the sheet with all the addresses. And I used every possible bad word that there was going down those stairs and delivering the papers, because I'm like, effing this. I can't believe I have a degree and this is is this what I was? It didn't matter. 6 months later, I made sure that I went up to the second floor, which was the Toronto Sun newsroom, and I made connections, and I made, not friendships. I made connections, and I hustled my ass. I hustled my butt to make sure that news director or editor knew that there's a kid down in, the circulation department that. My end goal was never to deliver newspapers for the rest of my damn life. It was to do something else. That's what I'm hoping I get through to millennials, is just start. Just get the damn job. Just start. If it's $20 an hour, $20 an hour, but work your way up. What happens is, and I see it with my own son, is they don't like the environment. I got news for you. You will most likely, and I want you to remember this if you don't remember anything else, you will most likely be smarter than most of the bosses that you're ever going to have. What you have to learn to do is eat a little bit of crap. Okay? Just to get to where you are. I don't see that happening with millennials, and I wish I could sit every millennial down and say, just eat that crap. Just silence for a few minutes. It's not abuse. Because I would never tolerate that. That's not what I'm saying.
You're just, I'm
just saying, just smile. You got to learn the art of smiling. And Elliot works with me, and he knows that I have it down to an art. I mean, you just smile and you're like, yeah. And you just go, oh, whatever. And because the end goal, keep in mind the end goal. And that's what I really, if I could give any advice, that would be my advice.
And you went
I'm sorry, I'm dominating.
No. You went right into my final question, which is, what's one piece of advice you would give to the other generation? So we've heard your point of view, Amara and Samuel. What piece of advice would you give to?
I want to hear.
I think all of the advice that I think you've already implemented it. I would just say, I think with age, you just if you're not living in society and you're no longer trying to get a job or trying to buy a house or even dating, you're no longer building your life, it might be easy to, get jaded or just not recognize the realities of life. So I would say just try to, keep updated and modern and aware of what life is really like for
I think there
people.
definitely could be some deficits in, I guess you could say, social ability, that they're not willing to network and, eat the whatever, like
Yeah.
you said.
Eat the whatever.
I don't, but
Crap. It's crap. You got to eat a lot of it.
there's, I think even in those maybe higher positions that even millennials wouldn't start in initially, they would gradually work into. I think you could see that in Toronto, maybe other major cities in Canada, even those wages that are higher would have 50 years ago, 40 years ago, given you a middle class life, don't offer those same type
Or
of
is it even
comfort today.
possible to
then-
work up to where you could have?
But guys,
before?
then what do? You just put your hands up in the air and you go sit in a corner and feel sorry for yourself. You've got to take that risk, because there's the economic aspect, but then there's also the psychological aspect. You got to feel relevant. You have to feel. I think that's also a really important a thing that baby boomers are. You have to feel relevant. Find something that makes you feel. I know you're an experiential society or a generation anyway. You got to feel, and you got to. How does it make me feel? Who cares? Just make it relevant in the sense of know that you are affecting change. Take life by the cahoots and just go and make that change that you want to be.
I just feel like you can say the life is like a gorge, and the boomers crossed a nice bridge. Some fell off, but most made it. And then when they reached the end, they torched the damn thing and said, "Sorry. Oh, you're not willing to jump. What the hell's
No,
wrong
they're
with
like
you?"
rapids with
Wow.
sharp rocks on the
Wow.
edges and slippery
And
banks
they
that you're
burn
going to
the
fall
bridge.
down.
Every rock is
Holy.
like, oops, sorry. You fall, it's like rock. Oh, can't afford children. Oh,
Yep,
can't afford
exactly.
to eat. Oh, can't afford a home.
Yep.
Why won't you jump? Just
And the
jump.
banks are so slippery you can't even like stand on them.
I
agree.
would agree with that, because you look at it as it's a lot of the financial aspect, and again with the fact that a degree is no longer what it's worth, we do sometimes feel irrelevant, and sometimes it's hard to really find out like where should I go, and I think that's why a lot of millennials have anxiety about that, because they don't know where to go, how to get there.
Also, the average one bedroom in Toronto is $2,200
Sure.
a month. Like, even just things like being able to work in the summers and pay for school or move out of your parents' house in university, like these things aren't happening. People are living at home till like their 30s at this point. I think it can get stifling, where it just feels like there are no options, because even if you have an education, you have debt, and you might not even be able to get your foot in the door, and you can't even afford to move out of your bedroom. Like, I think it's
I know,
difficult.
but that also, again, I agree. However, let's look at it from my eyes as a baby boomer, is that I want to get out of the workforce. Don't think that I'm hoarding this job at age 70 because I want to. It's because I'm working for my millennial child.
I also think a lot of times, like, when the boomers retire, that job doesn't exist anymore. They might contract it out. They might,
That lies a
export it,
whole different story,
outsource
which
it.
I agree
Yeah.
with you.
Outsource it to-
I agree with you.
Outsource it to a third world
Yeah, we're not
country.
being replaced.
No,
that is the
exactly.
problem.
So even if I know some people do complain about boomers not retiring, especially teachers, that's a big thing because
Yeah.
there's a lot of older
Sure.
teachers. But it's not like when they do retire, those jobs are going to millennials. Those jobs just don't exist anymore.
And I think, we just got a comment from Anna Roberts. She says, taking an interest in your career by working hard and continuing to update your skills will allow you continued success. As a baby boomer, I was raised to work hard and never give up. Now, I too was raised to work hard and never give up. But
So was I.
But it's not the same reality anymore.
it's just like the idea, you can, work smart, not hard as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, working hard does not necessarily mean like working long hours, working multiple jobs doesn't mean you're going to get the economic payback.
I'm sorry. I'm going to disagree with you. You got to start by working hard. Don't worry about working smart. Working smart has to come after. You just made my point, is that the millennial generation wants everything that the boomers are. Okay. So you're 25 years, let's say you're 25 years old entering the workforce. I'm 55, sake of argument. I'm older. I already told you my age. It's irrelevant right now. But you want what I have at age 55, but you want it at age 25. You got to.
I don't think that's
I don't think
true.
so. No.
Oh, I disagree.
I think we want the opportunity
Oh.
to be able to work for 30 years and end up where you
I'm
are at 55.
a little curious.
Yes.
Maybe not yourself, but
No,
your,
it's
your
okay.
your peers and your friends. At what age did they acquire a mortgage?
I acquired a mortgage. I can speak for myself. I acquired a mortgage and I'm going to tell you something. I acquired a mortgage at age 23. Age 23. I know, because but you're still in school at age 23.
Yes.
I acquired a mortgage at age 23. Stand by. Ready for this? My mortgage interest was 16.5%.
Can I ask how much
Stop.
the total cost of the home was?
Yeah. That's another thing. Don't think that, that hasn't changed. My mortgage was 200 and it was high. It was 265,000, something like that. Maybe I might be a little wrong. Yeah,
I think the average home in Toronto is around like $800,000.
Okay, but I was
Average
making
home is
$10 an hour. I was making $2 an hour.
Single attached? Single attached? Or
I think just
home?
average single family dwelling.
Probably,
But yeah, like condos are now going for like
Can I ask
low
you something?
600s.
Can I ask you something? Why do you feel that you have to live in the center of the universe
Well,
of
not
Canada?
necessarily Toronto, even the GTA,
But even
even
you-
going further, like
Bradford is expensive too. You know, and that's-
Stouffville, like these places that are hours away from Toronto. People are like
Hours?
pretending that
Well,
they
Bradford, especially in like rush hour.
Yeah.
You know?
People are
Okay.
pretending that they're like okay with commuting, ridiculous commutes into the city
I
every
know.
day
I
because
think
that's
it's
where they can
crazy, by
afford
the
to
way.
buy a home
One-
or just rent.
One day, Barrie will be a commuter town for Toronto.
Oh God.
I feel
If
like
it
that's
isn't
true.
I
already.
own property
Even-
in Barrie.
Even homes in
You're
Barrie,
in a good position.
even
then.
homes in Barrie aren't necessarily cheap. Like that's the idea,
yeah.
right? That like, yeah,
It's not.
Well, if you want to live like near Ryerson, where Yonge Dundas Square, like the center of Toronto, which is the biggest city in Canada, yeah, you might not be able to afford to live here as a normal person, but you should maybe be able to afford to live in Mississauga.
And we're probably going to have a whole discussion on affordable housing
Sure.
as a subject, but I think really that's where
It's called diverse housing, by the way, now. It's not
Is
no
it?
longer called affordable housing. I'm a
Interesting.
ratepayer. I've been a ratepayer chair for 20 some odd years. They do not like the term affordable housing because it has a negative connotation.
It does.
It does?
It does.
It
It's
does, I
called
would agree.
diverse options.
Why? I don't
housing.
think affordable.
But I
well,
think,
I understand
but I
that
think-
I'm not arguing that it
yeah,
doesn't. I'm
but I
just
think the
saying.
term diverse housing is
Yeah.
just like a cop out argument. Like
No,
it's
it's not.
it's like it's a politically correct.
Absolutely.
when affordable-
Politicians made that. Politicians
I think that young
labeled
people
that.
would just like to be able to afford a home.
So
Sorry, Ellie. I just want to put in the piece of advice I want to give boomers.
Yeah.
For the
Very
love
quickly.
of God, do not get a reverse mortgage.
Oh, God,
Please
yes.
do not get a reverse mortgage.
Exactly. Yes.
Oh, that's
That's
like,
it.
isn't it at $4 billion
Why?
in the States, the reverse mortgage
Why?
debt right
Because
now?
all the equity you built up your entire
gone.
life,
Right. We're leaving you
intergenerational
debt.
wealth, it's gone just so
Yeah.
you can do a couple extra cruises.
So they're just screwing us.
And it
even
actually
more.
is very sad. We are the first generation to actually leave a debt to our children, which makes me very sad. And
Yeah.
I will not do that.
and good on you, and
that
we
note.
really appreciate that. I think my parents will be the same way. But
I didn't say you were in the
that's-
will. I just said I'm not leaving you debt.
That's why I'm saying your son appreciates it. I'm
Oh,
sure.
sorry.
But
sorry, just one. I just wanted to mention my parents are young. My parents are Gen X.
Yeah.
So there's also, I think, a difference there, especially with Gen Z now.
Agreed.
Our parents didn't even necessarily have the opportunities the boomers had, and thus don't have the opportunity to leave us with what they can leave their kids.
yeah, and
Agreed.
Yeah. Well, at least we can end on a positive note. Everybody agrees.
Well, no, that's the generation that's going to leave debt. Baby boomers
Gen
are not
X.
leaving Gen X. The Gen
Right.
X
Of course.
generation.
Yes. I just mean a point that we can all agree on to end the show. That was our show for this week. Thank you to everyone that tuned in and that messaged us live. We had truly an incredible amount of comments coming in. We really, really appreciate it. Elvira, thank you so much for coming on the show. How'd you like it?
I love it. Thank you for the opportunity. I watch you guys and listen to you guys all the time, so I do have to give you applause and kudos. You are not the millennial generation that baby boomers want to say you guys are entitled and lazy. Damn it, you're doing this is good on you. Good on you. And you know what? I don't think it's doom and gloom, and I think that we need to stop with that. You know, I really hope that, and I'm pretty sure that you guys are going to sort of succeed and do whatever that means. Will it be harder? Obviously, it may likely be a little bit harder.
I think a lot more of us are into politics, and I think that's
Yeah.
going to change.
I
a lot of
honestly,
things.
I would encourage anybody that wants to have things change, go affect that
how you
change.
change it. Yeah, exactly.
And that's what we try to do with the show every
Yeah.
day. You know,
Yeah.
the last 4 years we've talked about different subjects, trying to keep people's interest and show them why these subjects are important. And the fact that we had so many comments today, the fact that we've had you on the show with so much experience, I think we're doing something about it, and we are being the change that we want to see. Once again, a brand new episode of the Raben Report will be coming to you next week, same day, same time, same people. Have a great day, everyone.